Hello, this is JJ Humphrey and Bobby Cleveland. We're back in Elephant in the Room. Hey, this is where we talk about what nobody else will talk about in the state. So we got a lot of things that we want to talk about this week. And Bob, I'd like to start with, we ran two articles on alleged rapes going on in the penitentiary.
Right.
And I just want to thank the listeners out there for responding because Bob, you've gotten several responses of witnesses that are coming forward.
Yeah.
And we want to encourage all the witnesses that know about these items, whether it be rape. Bob, I think they said on how the warden talks and warden acts. Is that not correct?
Well, that's another issue they do, especially with the females. He uses the F word all the time, and he's very rude and gets in their face and yells at them. But here's the thing, Representative Humphrey, we've been talking about this. I haven't even got out and asked for anybody's interview. I'm getting calls. They're coming out of the woodwork, so to speak. People at the prison bringing up that what you're saying is true. It's all true. They start giving examples, and so it's interesting how DOC couldn't find this, but yet we find it without him looking.
Well, and Bob, here's where I'm at. Especially I hope the AG kicks in and does do an investigation. But if you investigate, I know how to investigate a little bit. I've done a little bit of it. And if you investigate, you have what you call a primary, and the primary is the source of your information. So on this, one of the primaries would definitely be Dr. Lewis, who brought this forward and who is a whistleblower who came forward. But the other primary would be you and me, who have collected all kinds of new evidence and new reports. And we've got a ton of evidence, a ton of witnesses. We know one of these cases has already been to court and have been verified by attorneys that this happened and that nothing happened. And again, it looks like the investigator said, well, it was consensual. Can't be consensual. Inmate cannot consent to sex. If you have sex and you're a correctional officer with an inmate, guess what? It is rape all day long. And again, it seems like we've uncovered a case where it just seems like that's abundantly evident, and that the OIG people said, no, we can't prosecute because it was consensual, which they know to be a lie. That is a known lie right there. So we've already uncovered all of that. Again,
Representative, one thing that really, I guess I get really upset about is people don't really care. The average person, when you tell them this is going on in the prison, well, that's just in the prison. But these people are in prison. We're supposed to be trying to rehabilitate them, not just serve time, but rehabilitate them. We don't rehabilitate them very well if we're out there raping them.
Well, Bob, and not only that, but when they come forward and tell something, they're being moved. And again, I'm being told that this is going on at Mabel Bassett, and inmates are being moved to Eddie Warror because of things that they're being uncovered in Mabel Bassett. And why are these women being punished when you've established yourself on a yard? You got your friends, you know that yard, you know who to mess with, who not to mess with. Guess what? Now I jump you up, pick you up, move you to another prison. You got to establish yourself all over again. And what that means is people are going to try you. People are going to see if you're going to stand your ground, if you're going to fight, if you're going to protect yourself. And if you won't, they're going to take advantage of you. So you've got to reestablish yourself. You got to make new friends that are going the way you are. And it's just really difficult, really stressful. And it's really, really upsetting and sad that these women are being raped, being taken advantage of, and then they're the ones having to pay for reporting it. And again, it's being covered up. It looks like allegedly. We're not going to come out and say it is, but we have an abundance of people coming forward. And again, if you have evidence that this warden is intimidating, cursing, using alcohol, if you have evidence that they're keeping people past their discharge date, if you have evidence that they're covering up sexual offenses, then we'd hope you would call. And again, we're going to try to protect you, and we're going to put you in a status of whistleblowers. We're going to come up and kind of put that out how to file in the state for whistleblower protection. And again, I just want to encourage all the people who work in the Department of Corrections, if you have knowledge, firsthand knowledge of these events, I would just ask you, it's time, it's a duty. This is not just about some bad work ethic, some bad work environment. This is about people being raped. And if you have knowledge of that, you need to come forward.
Well, if they got knowledge of any PREA, it's in the policy. They have to go forward if they've had some PREA.
Bob, if it came out that you had knowledge of that and you did not act on it, yes, you could be in trouble. I know it's very difficult for the staff because this has just been par for the course. This is how it's been going on. And again, look at the person who did report it. She ended up getting terminated. She ended up getting rehired, and now she's ended up terminated again. And
I just think that it makes the Department of Corrections look foolish to do what they did.
If the court ruled that you had no grounds to fire the person on, and then they turn around and fire her again for no cause, especially with all this stuff she's reported.
Well, she fits into the 5%, and it's a super secret 5%.
Yeah, they didn't even know it. The department didn't even know it. They didn't even say it before. I mean, they went through 3 months of trial and didn't even know it.
Well, wait a minute. They may have known it. They could have doctored the paperwork.
It's possible, Bob. I think probably.
I hate to think that, but this is just wrong.
I talked to attorney Matt Frisbee. He's not sure that it's doctored up. He thinks it's an oversight on their part. But again, he's got to look into that. But again, the problem is you just went to court and the court told you to restore a job, and now you're telling the court we'll do anything we want, and she fits in the 5%. We'll just fire, even though we know we don't have a cause to fire, and they're not looking at the supervisors above her. So again, we discussed that last week. It's a bad look for the Department of Corrections, unless they've got something we don't know about. But again, here she came forward 4 months earlier. She had the guts to come and tell this stuff. And it really, really right now looks like that she is being retaliated against because of what she came forward with. And again, if enough of the employees come forward, they can't fire everybody. And if enough come forward, guess what? We can change the culture of this situation of the department. And that's what's going to have to happen. We've got to stop all of this kind of behavior and change this type of behavior. And it's never going to change until people step up and start doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm really disappointed with something that's going on. Especially, I'm disappointed that when they brought to their attention, they didn't fully investigate it.
Well, Bob, just this week we've had two officers come forward, step up, and give us statements. We've uncovered that some attorneys have knowledge of this. A judge possibly has knowledge of it. We've had two inmates that we've gotten information from. So this thing's snowballing. It's not just one person. It's not just doctors saying it. We're starting to confirm multiple cases, multiple things. The one inmate confirmed 5 situations and also added 2 more. So again, I predict that's what's going to happen. I've said, hey, as we go forward with this and people start seeing actual action, I think you're going to see this thing snowball into something huge. I think if we start looking into other institutions, I know right now there's other things being brought out on this same kind of activity. And so we just need to get it all out there and show that, hey, this is not the way to handle it, and start handling it right.
Well, you got to remember, the one inmate told us this back in November. And of course, I'd heard it, just little rumors here and there previously, and they said nothing was going on. And then she told us, which is amazing. Then the doctor told us months later what she had written and what she had found out, and people come to her and talk to her. Nothing was ever done.
And it doesn't appear she's got documentation where she's asked, supervisors and people in leadership positions what's being done, and she gets responses like okay, or yeah, we looked into that, but the guy quit 2 days later and we've not done anything. Well, guess what? You can't do. And again, one of the witnesses we've got says she called in a PREA and was never contacted. They're required to contact her. So again, we've got case after case that just doesn't appear. We know one person was let go when they were investigated, and according to another, legal case that they admitted, yes, we looked at this. Yes, we found he did have sex with the inmate, but it was consensual. We're going to let it go. They know that's not true. They of all people know that's not true. And again, that's covering up a rape. And if that was said, and if we can prove that right there, those people have got real problems, because even covering up one case. But Bob, we've got 14 more cases we're looking at that are almost identical, where we're being told sexual activity and they let them resign instead of filing charges on them. So again, we don't know all of them are correct, but we've got confirmation on probably 5 or 6 of them. And we, like you said, Bob, we're not out investigating. We're sitting on our rears, talking about the issue, going out on elephant in the room talking to people in the news and et cetera. And so again, what we're seeing, if we had a real investigation conducted on this, I think it'd blow it wide open and we would see some massive, massive things coming out. So hopefully,
speaking on the rapes and just talking about the prisons in general, there's been about 5, maybe 6 wardens terminated. But one of them, it just blows my mind that that's Luke Pettigrew. And he was probably, I think he's probably one of the best wardens we got, is when it comes to keeping his all the officers liked him, all the employees liked him, they respected him. They like working for him. You never hear a complaint about him from the officers. Like you hear complaints from about every warden. Some of the wardens deserve to be fired, absolutely deserve to be fired. But how can you go and fire a warden where there's the morale, all the morale is really bad in all the DOC, with except one prison? Now, why would that be? Because you got a warden that respects the employees, praises them when they do good, it gets on to them when they do bad, but he talks to them. And I've seen him. I've seen how he works. And it's just amazing to me that they came in there and fired him like they did. That was just, he had less, maybe he killed somebody. I don't know it.
Well, again, one of the big problems he's got, they're going to say he falls probably in that 5% as well. And, it's going to be difficult for him. And without
I think we're going to find out that he didn't fall in the 5%.
Well, that'd be pretty interesting, Bob, if he does it, because, again, how does Dr. Lewis fall in it and then a warden would not fall in it? So, again, consistency and how they're doing their business is a big, big problem.
Right.
Yeah, hey, Bob, switch subjects. I want to switch subjects with you. I got maybe the most difficult bill I have ever filed in 7 years, and I've filed some pretty hot bills. I've had, in fact, Bob, the first 6 days, if you'll remember, me and you served together, the first 6 days that I was in office, I shut the phone lines down for 2 days.
I remember that.
Protest, death threats, man. And here's what's funny. They're liars. I never even said what they accused me of saying.
Well, now you almost did.
Well, no, if you take the whole sentence and the way I used it, they just come out and said I said this, and it wasn't in no way the way they said I used it. Totally wrong. And anyways, I've had some very, very heated.
Let's tell them what you said. What did you say?
Well,
what did they say you said?
What I said back then and what I was doing was using is a child support deal. My thing is, I said, if I'm going to pay child support, then I ought to get to have say so in an abortion. And then if I'm going to, it took two to tango. And if pregnancy actually starts at conception, then we ought to start, the guys ought to be present all the way through conception, all the way through pregnancy, because guess what? You may have a premature baby born, and that mother may have to go in the hospital for months at a time and take care of that baby. Where's the father? Because it took two to tango. That was my point. But my point was, if I have $100,000, which is somewhere around what it's going to cost me through the lifetime of that, paying that child support, then I ought to have some say so in whether a mother has abortion. And what I was using, because they always say, well, it's a woman's body, you know.
Yeah.
And so what I said, what if me and my wife are too old to have a baby, and I get a third party surrogate host to carry the pregnancy, and now the person who is hosting the pregnancy wants to terminate the pregnancy, should my wife have a say so? And I thought it was really ingenious, because I thought, now that puts the woman and woman at odds. Boy, I thought, looky here, I'm pretty smart. And what they took away from that conversation,
You're the
they
host.
went out and told all the media, JJ called women host. And I was like, well, look up the word host. It actually means gracious caregiver is what it really means. And so made national attention, worldwide attention. I got stuff all over. So I've been in some controversial, got in controversial over transgenders, controversial over Black Lives Matter. I've been protested, threatened. You wouldn't believe, had protests set up in my office. But Bob, out of all of those, I think the most heated and most money spent has been trying to reduce cockfighting down to a misdemeanor. Right now it's a felony. And so I just
Do you know anything about this? Do you know anything about that at all? Can you see it?
Oh, they can't hardly see that. That's a rooster on there. And what that pen says is my cock, my choice. And a lot of people kind of got upset because we made a little old pen just making fun of, kind of back on slant on abortion. Now it's my body, my choice, and so we said my cock, my choice. And so, boy, I mean, a lot of people have gotten upset on that, but most of the people have thought it was humorous and thought it was kind of funny. And again, I'm gonna tell you, we want to put that on shirts and T-shirts, and we had that branded where it's our saying, so the chicken people saying, not my saying. I'm not involved in it. Chicken people saying, and so again, it's just been a very, very humorous thing, that pen. But Bob, the animal activist last week spent $400,000, is what I heard, trying to stop that bill. And again, here's what the bill does. So I had a one of these game fowl commission come to me and said, do you think it's right that a guy who owns a chicken or gets caught fighting a chicken gets 10 years?
Raises a fighting chicken, wasn't it?
Yeah, raising a fighting chicken, if they're determined to be a fighting chicken, or fighting them, would get a maximum of 10 years in prison. So you carry up to 10 years. And I told him, I said, oh, that ain't true. There ain't no way that's happening. And so I called in and checked, and sure enough, he was telling the truth. And again, we went and looked up, assault on the police. I'm a police officer. Guess what assault on the police carries, Bob?
What's it carry?
Maximum of 5 years. So what that tells me, a chicken is more important than the police. You know, that's sad that the people of Oklahoma care more about a chicken than me. You know what I mean? So I kind of like, hey, that's enough of that. We looked at fentanyl, and fentanyl's killing hundreds and hundreds of people. Fentanyl deaths are up 454.
I think 300. It had been 300 in Oklahoma alone, or is it more?
About 800, I thought.
800.
In all the overdoses I looked up, it's about 1,027 last year, I believe, was the number of total overdoses. Methamphetamine is...
That's just in Oklahoma.
Yes.
100,000 in the United States.
Oh, this fentanyl deal, Bob, fentanyl... I wrote an article 2 years ago that China has declared war on the U.S., and one was COVID, biological attack. COVID was not just biological attack, it was an economic attack. It was as much as an attack on America's economy as anything, but it's also a biological attack. But they're killing hundreds of thousands of people with fentanyl. And again, we're doing nothing. China has declared war on America, and they're killing Americans. They're trying to ruin our economy. And man, it's time we jump up. But here we're going to let fentanyl be a misdemeanor, but having a chicken, we'll send you 10 years penitentiary. Bob, I looked up prostitution of children carries 10 years. I mean, having a chicken and prostituting a kid, same thing. Beating up the elderly, same thing. So it's either, I mean, these offenses we're talking about carry less time or equal time. And strangulation, domestic abuse by strangulation, less time. Rape, second degree, less time. Anybody that hears me talking about that and then comes back and says, oh, you're terrible, we don't understand what you're doing, you've lost your mind. Hey, if you can't hear those charges compared to having a chicken, and we can't have a reasonable conversation, something is wrong. If you think prostituting children is the same as holding chicken, then me and you strongly disagree, and I'm going to tell you you're wrong all day long. I'm right, and I'll stand up for it. And we've got outside groups, Washington, D.C. pukes, Illinois pukes, trying to come in here and buy out Oklahoma, $400,000. They're going to spend another 4 to 5 over there in the Senate, and I'll guarantee you they'll spend some more if it comes back to the House. And
what's interesting, the very people killing babies, support killing babies, thought that my choice thought, oh, that's terrible. That is so rude. That is awful. But yet they don't have a problem with killing babies.
No, here's the deal. If I stood up on killing babies, I'd be their hero. But because I hand out a pen that says my cop, my choice, kind of making a humorous, slant at them. Oh, you thought, the ex-mayor of Norman wrote that, what was that? I'm not classy. Stay classy. Well, that's what I laughed. I wrote back and said, you know what? That's what I always get accused of, is being classy and being sexy. I get accused of both those things. So I'll just stay classy and sexy and keep doing what I'm doing.
Well, JJ, I don't want to hurt your feelings or anything, but I never heard anybody say that about you.
What about classy or sexy, Bob?
Both. In the same sentence.
You know what, Bob? The other day in the transgender debate, so I got up in the debate for transgenders, and I said, anymore, you can identify as anything you want. And so I want people to start treating me because I identify as being tall and sexy. And I laughed. I said, well, I got half of it covered. Hey, tall might be a stretch for me, but sexy, I got covered, So, Bob, we've lost our mind. I was going to debate the other day on so we had a bill up, took hours on what is a woman.
Yeah.
So we had to discuss for hours how you identify as a woman.
Right.
And you know what? I was going to, do a debate.
Why didn't you?
Well, everybody comes and said, JJ, don't debate. We ain't got time. JJ, just don't debate. It's just don't do it,
How can you not debate a subject like that? How could you?
It took everything I had because I had a debate.
Just tell us what was your plan? What would you say?
Well, here's what I was going to do, Bob. Last year during a debate on bathroom, I got up and said, if y'all been born in the country, you would know what, the difference between what we're talking about, man or woman. You wouldn't have any problem because in the country, we learned that you can't milk a bull. Now, you can try, but I wouldn't recommend milking a bull. And you can't get eggs from a rooster. Now, if you're from the country, you know that. And so deciding what bathroom to go to, you learn that in the country real quick. It's not a problem. Apparently up there around Norman and other places, they ain't taught that, and they don't know that. City, Tulsa. So that's where all the people arguing about which bathroom to go to seems to be from. So this debate, I was going to get up and say, I told y'all about the bull and the rooster, and I'm going to give y'all another nugget being from the country. Because being from the country, you got to take care of all your own business, Bob. Up there in the city, you call a plumber to take care of plumbing problems.
Yeah.
Out here in the country, you do a whole lot of the plumbing yourself, so you learn a little bit. And plumbing is probably one of the best things to teach. And if you don't know the sexes and you don't know how things go, plumbing is probably best because, Bob, they got a piece that's kind of round like that, and they call that a female. Okay, and they got
Yeah.
another piece that's kind of like this.
Yeah.
And call it a male.
Yeah.
Now, try to put two females together, it leaks every time. It won't
Kind of
work.
like putting a round hole into a square peg.
It's kind of the same thing. It just don't fit, Bob. It won't work, you know.
Yeah.
So two females don't go together. Two males don't go together. But
Right.
when you put the male and the female together,
Right.
then they work just fine. And
Well,
so
JJ, I think that makes sense.
it's important to know female, male, and if you learn plumbing, you don't have to question this anymore. Pretty easy to know.
So what we need to do is get all these city folks moved to the country so they understand how life works.
That or Bob, we just start offering a plumbing class there in high school. I think it'd be just as well. It'd help them plumb their own places, and then
well, I think we could use one at the Capitol.
Well, I would say that's probably ought to be a first. You know how they do a little training.
Out there first, yeah, take you train. Yeah, they ought to do that.
They'd let me come in and do orientation. We'd have all their problems fixed, you know what, real quick. So
we probably wouldn't have all those bills like we got. Wouldn't have all those people up there at the Capitol.
Oh, it's been, Bob, it's just been hilarious. Just like on this chicken thing, you would think that I shot the Pope. And again, I've told people, hey, it doesn't matter where you fall on fighting chickens, not fighting. It's about the sentencing. It's about should second degree rape carry less time than having a chicken. It's about can you strangle your wife and get less time than having a chicken. Now, if you think strangling your wife or your girlfriend is not as serious as owning a chicken or fighting a chicken, then me and you got a long, long ways to.
Now, I thought we made that an 85% rule.
No.
Strangulation.
No, I don't think so, Bob. I looked it up. Some of my people looked it up, and they said it carried less time than a chicken. And even if it is at 85%, and it may be, I don't think it is, but if it is, it carries less time.
And that is really strange.
Bob, and again, I tried to look up a bunch of these.
Why do you suppose, just think back, why do you suppose they other side got so bent out of shape over this? Just a bill went from a felony to a misdemeanor.
Well, Bob, they didn't get it bent out of shape out of heroin going. They didn't get bent out of shape out of $1,000 if you get stole from you being a misdemeanor. All kinds of other things that we reduced to a misdemeanor. We've legalized weed. So I don't have a clue what, I expect animal activists to be animal activists. They're nuts anyways. But, here's the deal. I can tell you, Bob, right now, the outside animal activists, these putes coming in from Washington, D.C. or Illinois, they don't care about animals. Hey, the guy that's coming in funding all this, he got caught. They had a tornado in Moore. You'll remember that.
I remember that. He got caught. Yeah.
He used to work for the Humane Society. He gets called in. He raises $1.4 million for displaced animals during that tornado, skips back to Washington with all the money. Scott Pruitt was the AG at the time, had to sue to get that money back. So everybody can verify what I'm saying. But he did. Scott Pruitt won that, got the money back for Oklahoma. So here's this puke, now the one leading the charge, all about animals. It ain't about animals. It's about him making money, because this is the way when they have some big deal like this, all people pour in the money to fight it, and he's making money. He could care less about it.
He just took that half truth and turned it into to suit him to help raise money.
Bob, he got fired. It's my understanding from the Humane Society. He had a lawsuit filed on him for rubbing his genitalia on female employees. Lost that lawsuit, got fired. Now has a group called Kindness Wellness for Animals or something like that. The other guy that's really pushing from Illinois, guy they call Sharky, go look up his rap sheet. It's a mile long, and again, he violates the law, trying to catch people breaking the law. Now that's a heck of a thing to break the law, to catch people breaking the law. But again, hey, we've caught our former AG Drew Edmondson. We caught this Sharky. We caught this. What is his name? Perselli is his last name. I think it's Wayne Perselli. Anyways, we've caught all of them, They got on Channel 8 News and said, we're having a joint task force to catch cockfighters, and we have flown drones recently in the recent days over these cockfighting facilities, and they showed the drone footage. Well, Bob, it's illegal to fly over private property and take pictures or video. It's illegal. And so we sent that to the DAs.
Hey, I'm going to just cut you off there. Didn't we pass that bill last year?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
So it's illegal, and the DAs completely refuse to file on these people. And again, why, I don't know. So it's really aggravating when you catch them on video. You know, when you got them on video and they're saying all that, you know what we call that in a courtroom?
What do we call that?
That's a confession, Bob. That's called a confession. It's also called Exhibit A. Exhibit A, and all them videos are BC, Exhibit D. We got all kinds of exhibits to show they violated the law. And again, here's the deal. We're talking about, boy, we're going to hold these cockfighters, these chicken fighters. We want them 10 years in penitentiary. But our AG, our former AG, can I get a witness? He ought to know the law. We got him violating law. Oh, no, it's okay for the former AG, this guy who stands up and acts so righteous, and he's a hypocrite. He ought to have his butt thrown in jail like anybody else.
You don't like him?
I don't hardly know him. I met him twice or so. He's a nice enough guy, but here's the deal. I'll guarantee if I break the law, hey, I got 2 bondsmen on call. I don't plan on breaking the law. I figure they'll throw me in jail just for being me. But you know what I'm saying? And Bob, you know for a fact I got 2 bondsmen on call ready to go, because I figure any day that one of these DAs are going to, for me trying to expose them for breaking the law, that they're going to throw me in jail. And
we just got a whole bunch of problems in Oklahoma.
Man,
I hear about DHS all the time. What do you know about DHS?
Oh, I'm doing investigations on them. All this stuff right here is that. Bob, I've got this death penalty case where we have proven that the DAs purposely destroyed evidence, that they changed the testimony. They went over there and perjured, subverted perjury, wrote out what to say. We found out that the judge and the prosecutor, she used to work for him, that he was in business with her husband. She married her husband while she worked for him in this law firm, and they don't even disclose that at the trial. Now that's wow. And then she goes back and says destroy evidence, goes back and says change the testimony, perjures and said we didn't even know anything about it. We found out that we have boxes of other exculpatory evidence. I think it's called Brady law that they have to give it. And guess what? We're finding out they didn't do that. And yet this guy's still sitting in prison on death row. Bob, you know about David Fleener case?
Yes, sir. I know about David Fleener.
Yeah, medical experts saying the testimony was false. We got some of the best medical examiners in the United States. We got one of the best doctors. Now we have the person who testified, and we know that was that testimony was what all the jury said, that's why they voted to incarcerate him. And now we got her saying, I testified wrong. And nobody wants to look at that and let that guy have a new trial or get out. And
well, let me explain a little bit about David Fleener. He was 21 years old. His girlfriend had gone to Walmart with her dad one night. He goes to bed. His bedroom door has some reason it doesn't lock, so he puts a knife in to jam it. Well, and not too long after he got in bed, he had heard a big rumbling, big noise, something hit the house. And he goes into the front room. There's a guy in there ransacking his house. They get in a fight. And he knifes the guy twice. The guy ends up walking across the street, sitting at a street light. And his girlfriend comes on. They don't have a phone back then. You don't have a cell phone. They didn't have a phone. He tells her, we need to go to the police department to tell him I heard a guy that busted into the house. As they're driving off, underneath the street light, they see the guy sitting down there. He walked over and said something to him. The guy, swung at him. But what happened was the guy was bleeding internally. It wasn't outside bleeding. It was internal bleeding. Every time he took a breath, it got full of blood. So they said that he could have walked a mile or maybe more before he would have killed over, but he was going to die. Well, then they tried to claim that he went across the street and that's premeditated murder. He stabbed him across the street, yet no one's seen it. People there said they seen him standing there. They did not. I could not testify they seen him stab him at all. But because the medical examiner said in her testimony, because of what he had, if he would have stabbed him the way he says he would have stabbed him, he would have been paralyzed or dropped dead quick.
Instantly.
Two medical examiners and a very prominent doctor said, no, that's not going to happen that way. You're going to live a little bit. Well, he lived. He walked across the street.
Well, what they did was come back and said what she testified to, because she made it clear the way he was stabbed, he would have fell right there. He couldn't have went nowhere. Right. He would have fell right there in that house. He would have been dead. So what she was saying is he was lying, that his testimony wasn't true. And again, her testimony was true. If people chose to believe her, then here comes our doctor. He gets hold of one of the top medical examiners in the United States. That medical examiner gets hold of this medical examiner's supervisor, and then she changes her testimony because all three of these people who are top examiners come and say, hey, it was not true. He could have went a mile. He could have run a long ways before he would have died. And so, again, we have this evidence. Nobody will look at it.
He got life without parole. Here's a guy that had not been in trouble. As far as I know, I couldn't find any kind of record on him. I think he might have. I don't think he had any.
Well, he didn't have any serious stuff, Bobby. No. And whether he did or not, even if you'd had some drug charges, you don't deserve to be in the penitentiary on a flat ass lie. You don't need.
Well, he's been there now for 20 years, 25 years.
Yeah,
he's done a unbelievable job in the prison system and come up with reports, things that helped when you're incarcerated. He does a lot of good things. He's their law library, takes care of that.
Bob, I've got 4 cases that we're trying to file a lawsuit, or hadn't tried. We filed a lawsuit. They did in Texas, not we. I'd say we, because of this kind of stuff. So we're exposing that. We're exposing David's case. We're exposing Richard Glossop's case. We're exposing all these rape cases.
Well, let's get back to DHS, how we got started. What's happening at DHS? Why do I hear so many people complaining?
We got, and a lot of it is not just DHS, but it's a bunch of it is the criminal justice system. It's the court system. And what you've got a case that was filed and what happened, it's called Casey Briggs. And what happened was Casey Briggs at DHS and all these prosecutors and people knew that abuse was going on in the home. They ignored it. Finally, the father kills Casey and throws the baby in a refrigerator or a freezer, I think. And when it come out, it just went nationwide. And knee-jerk reaction, our legal system and us as legislators come back and we did an act called the Casey Briggs Act. And again, it's pretty extensive. But what that did, it set up a system. And so, again, what we're seeing is all of these judges and all of these prosecutors and the guardian ad litem is what they're called, the person who is to protect the kid. They're all in bed together and referring each other cases. They're covering up a lot of crap, just like was going on before. We're seeing where DHS covers up some stuff or acts inappropriately or should be coming and reporting this, and it's not. And so, again, a lot of this started out of Pottawatomie County. I'm here in Logan County is 10 times worse. We've got cases in Oklahoma. We've got foster care issues. So we're looking into all kinds of cases. The guy that's helping me look, he was responsible. I don't know if you paid attention to the investigation went on about the coach out at Ringley and making kids do calisthenics and all this naked. The guy had been at 3 other places and had the same problems. And so one of the people involved in that case is a guy that I work with all the time. And so I actually knew on that case, I actually called legislators, say, hey, get your heads up. You fixing to get some bad juju over in your neck of the woods. But we've got all of that kind of stuff going on, Bob, and we are just constantly working and can't get you know, we just can't get anybody to, just like on this rape case, man. I mean, I put together a heck of a package with Dr. Lewis. Actually, I kind of instructed Dr. Lewis. She did most of the work. And so again, I've met with the AG. I've met with some of his other people, and Bob, they haven't went and talked to her. They haven't went and talked to me. They haven't went and talked to you. I would say we are the three primaries on this case, that if you're going to start, then you would need to come talk to us. How did this happen? What have you got? What are reports? And we've got a lot of other stuff that's been brought to us since. So again, that's the kind of reaction I'm getting, where we have to go to the courts and try to sue. But Bob, you know, I look at what's going on with Donald Trump and how they're weaponizing the court system. Hey, it ain't just with Donald Trump. Donald Trump's got the money to fight it. Donald Trump's got the popularity and the you know, visual. People see him, know it, recognize that this is a carriage of justice. It's abuse of justice. And again, I will tell you that if they want to look at who to prosecute, that prosecutor up there, he's not prosecuting, he's persecuting. And again, he needs prosecuted. And again, it's illegal. What he is doing is illegal, and he can be prosecuted for it. We're seeing that same thing here in Oklahoma. The only thing you don't hear about a David Fleener, because David Fleener ain't got the money and he ain't got the fame. You don't hear about a Richard Glossop as much. Now we're getting him in the news quite a little bit more, but you don't hear about these cases because those guys, who are they and who they don't have any money.
Well, let's go real quick on Richard Glossop. Now he's had several trials, right?
Yeah, and Bob, that's kind of when I got involved in it. I was like, hey, I don't want to talk about this. This guy's had more appeals, more trials. Well, they finally told me, said, hey, this is the guy who defended him. And I personally knew that guy and didn't think he'd do a good job. I said, well, I'll look at it. You know, I started looking at it. I was like, this investigation's a joke. And then we start looking at it more and more, and we start finding, I mean, Bob, I ain't even going into a fraction of the stuff that we know that they.
Kind of like what's going on up at
it's hideous.
Eddie Warror.
It's hideous what they did, the investigation. And then to find out that the prosecutor says, and we've got an affidavit saying this. This ain't me maybe thinking it. This has happened. The investigator signed an affidavit saying that the prosecutors told him to destroy evidence, key evidence. Bob, that's wrong. I don't care who you are. That's wrong. And those people ought to be prosecuted. And the fact that they would put a guy on death row who's had his last 3 meals 3 different times, you know what? I'm trying to quit cussing, but you know, them some bucks right there ought to be the one prosecuted. They ought to be the ones when they lie, when they go in to change witness testimony, when we got a medical examiner saying, hey, so the original witness, the witness who actually we know killed the guy, and he's getting off death row by testifying against Glossop. So here's the deal. He testified, I did not stab this person. Well, the person had stab wounds, and they found a knife, small knife, broken off, had stab wounds. The medical examiner said, well, the stab wounds are consistent with the knife. Well, they thought, so our side kind of thinks there's a woman maybe possibly in the room. Okay, thought somebody else may have done those stab wounds. They're not very deep. So again, it would be consistent with a smaller person, female, possibly. Now, we don't know that. However, this guy, Sneed, says, I never stabbed him, and he's got sworn testimony saying I never stabbed him. The medical examiner says the guy was stabbed. So obviously something ain't jihad. So the prosecutor writes over to this Sneed's attorney and says, hey, it would be nice. So here's what the medical examiner said. Well, that's a violation of sequester. You can't be sharing what the witnesses say. But they say, hey, here's what the medical examiner said. And it'd be nice if old Sneed could change his testimony. And they write out what they want him to say.
I got to settle my dogs down.
Settle them dogs down, Bob. Golly, what are they barking at? But anyways, for our listeners, this prosecutor comes in and not only tells the guy what to say, writes it out for him. We have it written down. We know what
Come
they
here to the
said.
bedroom. Come back here,
And
my
so
office. Hey, back in here, my hey, over here.
perjury.
Come over here and sit down.
Felony.
Y'all are in timeout.
Then what happens is they go to court. So they go to court, and Sneed comes in and changes his testimony. So Sneed walks in, changes his testimony. The defense jumps up and says, hey, he just changed sworn testimony. We're calling for a mistrial. The DA jumps up and says, well, we're all finding out at the same time, so we're all on the same playing field, so it shouldn't be a mistrial. Well, that's a lie, because they're not finding out at that time. They're the ones who told them what to say. So it's all a lie. It's all perjury. It's changing testimony, tampering. All of that's felony. You can charge them with it. They ought to be charged. Then they hid all kinds of evidence. Then they failed to disclose, not only them, but the judge failed to disclose the close relationship they had. I'm telling you, Bob, here's a murder trial that stinks to high heaven, and we can start naming case after case.
Yeah,
like
I didn't know that. Well, JJ, Representative Humphrey, let's talk about the homeless.
Bob filed a big bill this week, man. Made a lot of people mad. I've caught a little heck on it, which I file a lot of bills that I catch a little heck on. So I don't mind to stir up. I kind of enjoy a good argument out now and then. So, Bob, what I did, if you look in Seattle, you look in California, all these people living on the streets, defecating on the streets, dropping their needles, dropping their drugs, all of this, people stepping on nose, getting hepatitis, all kinds of infections and things like that. We don't want to see that happen in Oklahoma. And we have seen a homeless problem start to crop up, especially around the urban areas there in Norman, Oklahoma City. If you go to places, Oklahoma City, you can't even drive down the street because they're set up tents underneath these underpasses, and one whole lane might be blocked off. You can't get through there without worried about you going to hit somebody. So again, what I did, I filed a bill last year to remove off of any critical infrastructure. We had a big argument over the word loitering, because I use the word loitering. And we also had a big argument over states, things like state parks. Who would know, could you not camp in a state park? And I'm like, well, you got to have permit. You got to have this. You camp in a state park if you're legally there, So we got in a huge argument. So we changed the wording to county this year, and we kind of did a better job defining loitering. I still got questions about loitering. I laughed. They were like, well, how are you going to know, and who can distinguish? I said, well, if I call you short, can I get a witness? You're short. And if I say that I'm smart enough to figure it out, and you can't, you in sad shape. So I think I understand what's there. And if you can't, heaven help you, And so anyways, I didn't get no more questions after that. We voted the bill and we moved it across. So it goes over to the Senate. Again, I don't know how hot. We've had it in the Senate twice, and it's gotten killed both times over there. But it's an important bill, Bob. I don't want to walk down. I listened to a guy the other day that he listened to a business owner pay a guy $20 to move out of the front of his business. And you know what? That's wrong. In fact, Bob, what that is, it's extortion. That's extortion. And so, again, I don't think a business owner ought to have to beg somebody to not defecate in front of his store or her store business. I don't think you ought to be setting up a tents, Main Street, sidewalk. The sidewalk is critical infrastructure. It's how we all get down the street. It don't belong to one person. It belongs to everybody. Your rights, you have your rights. They end right here at my nose. And when you start invading on my rights, and you can get the hell off the sidewalk and let the people through, is what I would say.
The one in Norman, here a while back, it's probably been 6 months, maybe more. As I drove by it, they must have had 100 tents set up out there in probably about 100 yards off the road. Maybe not that far, 50 yards off the road. And a guy standing out there just relieving himself right there in front of everybody. I'd hate to have one of my grandkids with me, and see something like that. But
well, Bob, that's indecent exposure. And I don't know why we're not filing that more on them. But here's my head scratcher. You know, if you try to put in a septic tank right now, you got DEQ coming out. They make you buy extra. You can't even put in a regular septic tank. Now you got to have one of those that aerate and do all this kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I don't know who they got friends that must have business like that, because that's bullcrap. We got by hundreds of years the other way.
With a regular septic tank, yeah.
But here's what's funny to me. You know, we got to have DEQ come out if we're going to have a house with 5 of us living in it, and make sure all of that's good. Now, golly, we can't endanger the public. Oh, heck no. We got to have thousands of dollars that you, me, going to have to spend to make sure that don't happen. But we'll let a whole bunch of crackheads line up out there on a parking lot and take a whiz and defecate and have drugs and all kinds of stuff. And again, where's DEQ? Where's the health part of it? This ain't healthy. You ain't got to be a brain surgeon to know it's not healthy. So again, do we want to take our kids there? Do you want to go to the health department and wade through that to try to get to a health department? You know, I mean, it's insanity. And the fact that we're having to argue it is insanity. And again, I didn't catch near as much heck this time around as I did the last time. But now, boy, last time, I got eaten up, which I kind of enjoy, Bob. I don't want to say that like people think I'm worried about getting eaten up. I love a good argument on the floor. I love a great debate. Doesn't bother me a bit. I'd be up here for an hour talking. Don't bother me. I know you'd find that hard to believe, Bob.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't believe that.
But
sure? Hey, let me ask you a question here. We're getting close to timing out here, but a lot of talk on TikTok going on across the country.
Yeah, Bob. Hey, I don't know if I mentioned. I think I talked to you last week about that. I'm working on getting a friend of mine, Morgan Hobson, who used to be in the military, and Morgan's just a guy who keeps up. Morgan actually helped me write a bill. I tried to sue the Facebook, and the state wouldn't let me do it, and they said, well, send it over to the AG. AG again dropped the ball because I know I had a good lawsuit, and Morgan's the one who explained this to me. But what he had explained to me on that was that Facebook, the way Facebook makes their money is they data mine you. So they keep track of all of this stuff that you do all day long. They're keeping track of every little thing you do. And then they sell that to companies saying, hey, so many people in Oklahoma like this, or this person likes this, or this age group likes this. And it's called data mining. Well, one of the things they do, especially for younger people, they use a deal called Skinner box. And Skinner box is not an actual box. What it is, it's a set of psychological tools they use to addict people into using their phone. So they are using things that they know psychologically work, that have been tested to get people addicted to their phone. Now, we sued the tobacco industry for using addictive products to addict people. We sued the pharmaceuticals for addictive opioids.
Got a lot of money.
I wanted to sue Facebook for using addictive methods. Can't never get the AG. And our side said, well, unless the AG says that they're behind this, unless they write it up. So I've tried for 4 or 5 years to get that done. Well, I was having a conversation. Now, it's pretty funny, Bob. Morgan ran against me the first time I ran, and we got to be really good friends. He's a heck of a good guy. Love him.
Okay, so we'll speed things up, because I don't want you to give out too much information here, but we're going to have him on here with us next week talking about TikTok.
TikTok and what TikTok's doing, especially to our youth, on suicides, on sexual addiction stuff. And Morgan's really, really into that. He's also a counselor and has degrees. The guy's just super sharp on all this. And I was talking to him and just said, we got to get you on because people need to know this. So that's who we're wanting to have on next week if we can get his schedule right.
Well, take us home.
Well, hey, we want to finish up. Again, one of the things we started this week with was we talked about our rapes one more time there, alleged rapes in the Department of Corrections. What we're asking is, we know that all of you employees fear retaliation, fear losing your job. But again, when it comes to a serious nature of rape, it's time to step up. You got to come forward. If enough of you will come forward, they can't get you all. We're working to protect the doctor. We've got her classified as a whistleblower. We'll see how that carries out. But we just want to encourage you, please get a hold of us. You can do that anonymously right now. We'll talk to you if you want to go forward. But again, you can get a hold of me or Bob, either one. We'll be happy to share with you, work with you, verify information. You can verify information without you having to go forward. Just like we've learned about these lawyers, about conversations with OIG, with attorneys, some inmates, you can share with us and we can move forward. We want to ask you to help us. I want you to know on the chicken bill that there's a lot of misinformation, big money being spent by outside animal activists, but it's as simple as this. Do you believe that heroin ought to be lesser charged than chickens and chicken fighting? Do you believe assaulting the police ought to be a lesser charge than chicken fighting? Do you believe strangulation ought to be lesser charge? Do you believe second-degree rape? If you're with me and you believe those should be greater charges, then that's as simple. We're not legalizing. We're reducing it to a misdemeanor, just like all these other 780 crimes that the people voted on. So it's not against the will of the people. 780 was the will of the people, and that's what we're trying to do. And last thing, I hope you agree with what we're trying to do, and not being like Seattle, not being like California, and to try to make sure that our whole state, and it's not just the urban, because it can happen in rural as well, that we give our county officials the right to remove people off of critical infrastructure, whether that be a sidewalk, a road, a pipeline, the courthouse, detention centers, the health department. If it's county, we got in a big argument about, hey, what about the county fair? And guess what? Those fairgrounds are used for multiple things, and they're for the public. We don't need needles. Kids go out there all the time, 4-H events, cattle events, livestock events, other things that we use for public events there. We do not need needles. We do not need defecation, people exposing themselves, all of these kind of things. So I hope you'll agree with me that that is a good bill, and I hope you'll call your senators and ask them to push that on through, as well as that chicken bill, help get it on through. It's got one tail feather left, so maybe you can grow a few more over on the Senate side. So, Bob, I think that pretty much covers the conversation we had today. Look forward to seeing everybody and talking about TikTok next week.
Hey, thank you very much. God bless you.
God bless you. Catch you later.